See you later. What's up, Bitcoiners? It's your boy, Matt Odell. I'm excited to be here on the eve of Bitcoin's 12th birthday, 12th anniversary of the Genesis block, with my good friends Ketan and Wiz, to celebrate Bitcoin with Bitcoin Magazine. What's up, guys?
What's
Matt,
up?
how are you?
I think a lot of the listeners and viewers that are joining us right now are aware of who you guys are, but it'd be great if you could give a brief, introduction of what you've been up to this year in terms of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin ecosystem. You want to start, Wiz?
Yeah, so I'm Wiz. I work on mempool space, BISC, Liquid. I organize a meetup in Tokyo. I guess it's just the only Bitcoin meetup in Tokyo now. Bitcoinonly.com, 6102. I run like an ISP, have a bunch of servers and network and stuff, and I write a little bit of code here and there. But most of all, I'm just like a full-time Bitcoiner, self-sovereign kind of guy.
My name's Ketan. I am the co-founder of Ministry of Nodes, and we provide sort of video tutorials on how to run your own node and hold your own keys. We also do private consulting, one-on-one coaching sessions on how to get up to speed with Bitcoin. And then throughout the year, I've been going to meetups and going to small little conferences like the Bitcoin Bush Bash that happened, setting up Blockstream satellite and just playing around with self-sovereign tools. So that's what I've been up to.
I really love what you guys have been doing over there at Ministry of Nodes, helping Bitcoiners become more self-sovereign. To the listeners who are unaware, he's been doing that with our boy Stefan Livera. It's a joint project between the two of them. So I applaud you on that. So let's get into it. Today is January 2nd, 2021. At least where I live, I think it's like about to strike midnight by you guys, which is pretty exciting. The Bitcoin Genesis block, the first ever block, was mined on January 3rd, 2009. 12 years ago. It's been a long fucking time. A lot of progress since then. This day has since been used as a publication of so-called Proof of Keys Day, this will be the third year running of that. The main promoter of that has since left the space due to some unexplained shitcoinery. But I think the general premise and idea and concepts that were built around that day should definitely live forward. Self-custody today is more important than ever, and I really want to discuss why we Bitcoin and why it's important that we do it in a self-sovereign way where we reduce our reliance on third parties. And I really couldn't, I can't imagine a panel that I'd rather be talking about this with than you guys. So I'm pretty excited for it. So I think we should just jump into it. I'd like to start with Wiz. Wiz, to you, like, what does January 3rd mean?
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me to join the panel. I guess, January 3rd is just Bitcoin Day, right? It's the anniversary of the Genesis block, like you said. It's not really, I kind of, I don't like that coining it the Proof of Keys Day. I think that's kind of lame. You should always have your Bitcoin on your own keys, on your hardware, and I'm sure you guys would agree. So I kind of wish that we would just call it Bitcoin Day. What do you think?
Maybe next year we'll call it Bitcoin Day. Or like we'll get Bitcoin Magazine to call it Bitcoin Day. We can just call it Bitcoin Day for the rest of this panel. It's fine by me. When the listeners are watching this, they're going to be watching this at the end of a full live stream event. So we can basically ahead of time dunk on the people who have already streamed, and we could say that they should have called it Bitcoin Day. How about that?
Absolutely.
But yeah, I agree. Every day should be proof of keys, right? So let's talk about why that's important. Why is it important to hold your own keys?
Yeah, I mean, if you use BISC, then your funds are always in your wallet anyway. So like it doesn't even make sense. Like on BISC, what are you going to do? If you're using Bitcoin to the maximum cypherpunk, yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Ketan?
Well, as far as the majority of people, I just don't see them coming in via BISC. I hope that changes. I really do hope that that changes. But the majority of people are buying on some form of centralized exchange, unfortunately. Um, and so to be able to tell them, hey, you know what, it's a risk to leave them there, and you want to take ownership of them, I think is a worthwhile message to get out there, because I don't want to see a raft of regulation come in where people will have to ask for permission to transact with their money. And unfortunately, that is just the way that the cookie has crumbled at this point in time. I truly hope for 2021 we move to services like BISC and like Hodl Hodl, and more like peer-to-peer transactions, maybe doing it, face-to-face, those sorts of things. I would love to see that. I just don't know if that's going to be the case. And so it is good to have days like this where we tell people and we push people to take that step of taking, if you're leaving keys or if you're leaving your coins on the exchange, you are at risk. And that is very important to get that message across.
Why don't you explain what that risk is?
Well, first of all, there's two. Well, the first risk is that the exchange can go down. It can be hacked. There have been instances in the past, particularly around 2013, 2014, with the Mt. Gox whole debacle, whereby people lost a lot of money, and the exchange went down, the server went down, they stopped withdrawals, there were long delays in processing withdrawals, and then they completely stopped. That could happen with any exchange. And so what we want to do is make sure that we are taking those coins off the exchange and putting them into our own custody. That is why it's important, because servers do go down, servers do get hacked, and exchanges are considered a honeypot. And so attackers will go after them. And it could also be an inside job as well. There's a lot of risks that are involved in creating those exchanges and having those huge honeypots there. And so to protect yourself from those risks, you should retrieve your coins.
What about those kind of newer, maybe they're not exchanges, but more like broker-dealer services where, like I think River maybe one of them, where they directly send the Bitcoin into your cold storage custody, self-custody,
Yep.
so that they don't even custody funds or something. I'm not really familiar. I have never used the service, but
yeah, and Bull Bitcoin does that as well in Canada.
Right.
They don't hold any of your keys, or sorry, they don't hold keys on your behalf. It's not an IOU. They just send it, and to buy, you must provide the address to send it to.
And Strike.
And Strike as well. So these are some great services that are minimizing their risk of holding Bitcoin on behalf of their user base, which is, I think, a step in the right direction.
They build it directly into the user flow, which is kind of what you want to see, right?
Well, it seems like there's almost a kind of two different kinds of use cases, right? One where you actually want to leave funds on the exchange in the hot wallet for day trading or some kind of speculative or some kind of derivative, futures contracts, whatever people are using that hot wallet funds for. And then the other use case is just guys who want to stack sats, and they have no interest in ever having their funds on the exchange custody hot wallet, right? So I could see how, some people just sign up on an exchange and buy Bitcoin and then just neglect to withdraw it to their own custody. But maybe, we should push the other types of services more, like BISC or River or Bull Bitcoin, these guys that are actually doing it directly into your cold storage at home. Because it seems like once you get set up that way, you're never going to screw it up, hopefully, right?
Well, I mean, I think so. So you have BISC and HODL, which never actually even take custody of your fiat or your Bitcoin, right? So that's like the ultimate, just straight up, no custody whatsoever. And then
And no
you have
KYC.
and no KYC, right?
Mm.
Even more important because they don't custody your private information, which could be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than your Bitcoin sometimes. And then you have the next one, which is like this custodial flow that's set up that you just pretty much reduce the trust as much as possible. And I kind of like, I hope that we see basically those types of services increase. And I think that's what we have seen happen, which is good. I mean, the early days of Bitcoin were more focused on these large centralized trading platforms, right? And now it's more of like an accumulation on ramp. So yeah, I do agree that that's good to see. But I think ultimately, so self custody of our coins is a two-step process. One is controlling your own keys, controlling your own private key. You have your private key and you have your public key. The public key is like a view key where you can see your transactions, you can see your balances, you can construct a transaction. The private key is like your spend key. It allows you to spend your transactions. So there's two things in a self-custody mindset that you need to be considering. You need to be protecting your public key for privacy reasons. If someone has access to that, they're able to see all of your transactions and your balances. And you want to protect your private key because if they have your private key, they could take all your money and spend your money. Fortunately, and then on top of that, you have the ability to use your own node. And when you interact with the Bitcoin network, you have to use a node to interact with the Bitcoin network. And if you're not using your own node, you're trusting someone else's node, both with verification, but more tangibly with your privacy. You're trusting them with your privacy. So we have these three key tenets, I guess, of self-custody of Bitcoin. And I think like if you look at the last 2 years, I mean, we've come a long fucking way in terms of it being easier. Like I'm not trying to hide the fact that it's more difficult. Like a personal responsibility will always be more difficult, but I think we've made great strides. Wouldn't you guys agree?
100%. The services that are coming out right now to help you on your way, specifically for non-technical users, are just absolutely phenomenal now. If you look at service or open source software, Spectre Desktop is probably my pick on the list of one of the greatest initiatives that I have seen to come out, which I have been begging for and wanting to see because it just makes my life easier to help people on board onto self-custody. Then you have all of these implementations, node implementations that are coming out. Umbrel. I don't know if you've seen some of the screenshots that they're putting out, but the UX on that is absolutely beautiful. To be able to run your own node and hold your own keys is getting easier. But again, you are right. Personal responsibility will always be a more difficult task than giving it to a trusted third party.
Yeah, the Umbrella project's pretty cool. Their new app store. We didn't announce it yet, but we've been working on the new mempool app for the Umbrella App Store, and it's going to be pretty sick. Where you'll actually be running like your own block explorer locally on your own Raspberry Pi. So it kind of takes it one step further, like what Matt was saying with when you either withdraw from the exchange or however you get your Bitcoin into your own cold storage, you actually want to verify it using your own node on your own hardware that you really do have real Bitcoin in your wallet. And that'll be, I think, one of the cool apps to get on your Raspberry Pi. But what do you guys run for your I guess home full node setups?
So I use a computer that I just bought, like a cheap computer. I chucked an SSD on there. It's a desktop. It's like a Dell Optiplex, and I've run Debian on that. And then I have loaded up all the apps that I want. So I put on Bitcoin Core. I lay it on, a Dojo. I've layered on mempool.space. I've layered on all the apps that I think are necessary. I've got Lightning Network on mine. And basically, I've also produced a tutorial of exactly what I've done on my YouTube channel with the Ubuntu Nodebox. So you can follow me along and you can, pretty much do what I do. I'm in the process of actually making a 2020 series, which is the Ubuntu node box with 20.04. And I'm going to take everyone through, and I've recorded most of it. I'm probably going to post it within the end of the month. So I'm pretty excited to show you how I run my own node. So if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to.
Fuck yes, looking forward to that guide. Your guys are great. Shout out Ministry of Nodes YouTube. Just search Ministry of Nodes in YouTube. I guess kind of, I mean, bear markets are where like you just fuck around, experiment with new things. And we had so many new node platforms that came out. So like I'm looking at straightforward right now, and I have a Raspberry Blitz running, an Umbrel running, a Ronin Dojo running, and a Nodl running over there, just like directly across from me. I'm glad the stream isn't cutting in and out.
So
but
Matt, which
after
one's your
all of
production?
that,
Which
what?
one's your production and which one's your production environment? Like, what's the one that you're using?
So I mean, I have Join Market running on the Raspberry Blitz.
So you're using all of them for different use cases.
Well, not really, actually. I mean, the Ronin Dojo I was using for like my Dojo Samurai stack, but now I'm back over at the Nodl using that.
Right.
And then the Umbrel is more of like a test environment, but that new app store they released is fucking fantastic. It's slick as fuck. And I just really like what they're doing over there. But it's funny because I've just come full circle because now I'm like, I have a multi-sig setup with Core plus Spectre on just a dedicated Linux box that doesn't even run 24/7. So like the other ones, it's important. Like the 24/7 node is important, I think, for two reasons. These dedicated boxes, whether you buy a pre-built like a Nodl or you build your own like an Umbrel or a Raspberry Blitz, the dedicated node has three main benefits. Let's go. The first one is very easy to connect to mobile wallets. And mobile wallets, you need them 24/7 because you're using your phone 24/7 and you're pushing back, through Tor to your node at home or at the office. The second thing is CoinJoin and Lightning. Both of these require hot wallets that are constantly doing things. And then the third thing is what Wiz was saying, like these different utilities, like mempool.space, just blockchain explorers in general. If you want to look up transaction data, look up that kind of stuff, is very useful to have 24/7. But if you're talking about like on-chain coldish storage, like trying to secure your stash for like long-term, you don't need your node to run 24/7. You just really need it to catch up when you're receiving transactions or doing anything. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's an interesting trade-off balance you have there.
that's a good point, Matt. Like you can, obviously the best is to run your own full node on a Raspberry Pi or something, but yeah, you don't have to, right? You can it's all trade-offs. You could, instead of trusting one person like your Uncle Jim or whoever you do trust in real life, you can use their node. But if you don't have an Uncle Jim, you can kind of decentralize. You could say, all right, I'm going to check it against 10 different block explorers out there that are run by different people, and they all verify the same thing. And if you all access to them over Tor or something to protect your privacy, then sure, that's not as great as having your own full node, but that's still pretty good security and privacy wise. And a lot of these apps, like wallet apps, will actually have like a default configuration where it uses the developer or the contributor's full node to start, so that you can just quickly install your wallet and start using it right away. But they almost all have the option to use your own full node, by pointing it to like an Electrum server or some other standardized protocol, where you can just connect to your Raspberry Pi over Tor very easily, either Lightning or on-chain, whatever wallets you're doing. And so like Bisq, for example, has, I think, we have, well, for Bitcoin nodes, I think there's more like 16 Bitcoin nodes that are run by different developers. And some people run a few of them. Like I think I have like 4 of them are actually mine. But you get like a nice mix of different, like it's very unlikely that all the contributors of Bisq are going to suddenly turn evil all at the same exact time. or if you're using the Spectre wallet or the Electrum wallet, you know, these Electrum servers, like the community would realize very quickly if anyone did anything malicious with these full nodes. So it's not the end of the world to use somebody else's full node.
Well,
You know, especially.
well, from like a verification point of view, right? It's basically been a theoretical risk this whole time, right? Like we've been talking about this risk. We said 12 years since the Genesis block. I mean, that's obviously before my time, but I assume people have been talking about this risk for almost that entire time. And we basically have had no wide scale like verification attacks where like a trusted third party node was telling you that you had Bitcoin when you didn't.
Okay,
Right?
I've got a story for you. So, Bitcoin ATM in Tokyo, these are the good old days before Bitcoin was even regulated in Japan. Um, this Bitcoin ATM opens up in a co-working space in Ginza, and it uses blockchain.info's API for its backend. And the way it worked is that it would display a QR code, you would send the Bitcoin, and on 0 confirmations, it would dispense out the cash, like Japanese yen banknotes. And so at the time, I don't know if this is still the case, but blockchain.info's verification was, well, shitty. It was just, I mean, I have screenshots where Satoshi's coins had moved on blockchain.info, but they had not moved on any other explorers. And it was simply because they had like rolled their own implementation of the Bitcoin consensus rules or signature verification, or they just made a ton of mistakes in those. These are the old days. And so to demonstrate, I actually crafted like a false signature for a Bitcoin transaction. And I broadcasted it using the blockchain.info broadcast page. And sure enough, the ATM gave me cash on a totally invalid Bitcoin transaction. So, I mean, yeah.
But that was
that's
more, I mean, I'm not going to make excuses. I mean, but that was more, I would say, they were being inept than being malicious, right? Like there's always been this fear that someone like a Ledger or something who's running these large nodes that a lot of people are using could start fucking around with you intentionally to make money. And we really, I guess it's always a fear, and people should just, you know, reduce that risk. But it's one of those things that kind of plays out with the market. People would notice, they would get destroyed as a company, and no one would ever use them again. But that would obviously suck for the user. But with something like BISC, I think
we have bonds.
A more tangible risk of trusting another, you know, a third party node that's not your own node is the privacy aspect. And you know, and BISC solves that because it defaults through Tor. It has it bundled in.
Yeah, so with BISC, we actually take it a step further. So I actually have to post bonds to the BISC DAO, which is quite a large amount of money just to, you know, be able to get the privilege of running a node for the BISC like network. And if I fucked around or did anything malicious, then the DAO could confiscate that bond. So there's a huge financial disincentive for me, because that's how like crypto anarchy works, right? You have to like financially incentivize what you want people to do and financially disincentivize what you want people not to do. And so you know, like I run all the seed nodes and the price nodes. I also have like a price feed service for BISC and a bunch of other things where, you know, like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people run these trusted nodes. So it's not like centralized. It's not like super centralized or anything. It's a little bit decentralized, but we do have both the financial bonds that we're putting up, and we also have like the reputational aspect of it too, right? So nobody, you know, if I did anything, nobody would ever want to work with me again after that, right? So
a completely different trade-off balance than something like Ledger servers, or than something like Electrum servers, which are completely public and anyone can run them, right? Like this is it's a completely different trade-off balance. And of course, I mean, you can use BISC with your own node as well, which is the idea,
that's right. That's what I was going to say. BISC, I think there's an input page where you can put in your the RPC details, and away it goes, and it sort of looks that up as well. So
yeah, it's like automatically detected. If you have Bitcoin Core running on your computer and you start BISC, it says, oh, I see you have Bitcoin Core running. I'll just use that instead of somebody else's node.
Right, which is what Spectre does. Which, by the way, to the listeners, if you're listening to this, my talk with Ben Kaufman has already happened, which is one of the developers of Spectre. So I'm looking forward to that. But that was already happened, but it's in the future for me. But anyway, I like this concept. I really like this concept of one software and then Bitcoin Core. You know, so you have like these different packages that you install on the same machine as Bitcoin Core, and like that's your configuration. Because I think like that's where it gets really easy. And then you don't have to deal with any kind of routing errors or using Tor to connect remotely or something. Like if you just have a dedicated machine, you have Core, and then you have whatever software package you want. Good.
Well, it works for some use cases, but not for others, right? Like for example, mempool space is a good example because it requires an index of literally everything, all the blockchain data, all the fee calculations, addresses. So, which is just a huge amount of data, and to get that working on a Raspberry Pi is a huge challenge, actually. So, there's some apps like BISC that work very well with just Bitcoin Core only, but there's other apps where you need like an Electrum server in front of it to index the blockchain to some point. Maybe you don't need everything, but that was one of the big challenges, getting mempool space to run on a Raspberry Pi. So up until now, it's not even released yet, but we only had like mempool v1, which was just this very simple mempool visualizer. But now we're going to have like the full Explorer running on a Raspberry Pi. So that was
awesome.
Basically like the past year of work.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to that actually, because I'll do a video tutorial on that. I've already done the one on mempool.space for version 1 actually. So yeah, that'll be as part of the series as well.
We're just gonna like forget version 1 ever existed. We're just gonna go straight to version 2.
All right, nice.
I mean, it's a couple years ago. It's been a lot of work done on the project since then. So yeah.
I mean, but I think that like aligns, that pretty much aligns with my vision here, right? Is that that's a more advanced user function.
Yeah.
Right. Like let's
for the basic newcomer, I think like something like having Bitcoin Core on your local PC as well as Spectre Desktop on your local machine as well, alongside a hardware wallet. And you have this nice flow of information.
Right. And then maybe some
kind
of CoinJoin implementation that just hooks right into Bitcoin Core, right? And then you just have those three things, and then you're pretty fucking self-sovereign. And then if you wanted to have like a dedicated box and have your mobile wallets connect to it and have an always-on Lightning node and have mempool.space, then you can jump into that dedicated box area, right?
Yeah, that sounds like a good level up, right? Because everyone already has a computer and they can just install Bitcoin on that and get started. But then at some point they want a Raspberry Pi, at some point they want a hardware wallet, crypto steel backup, whatever other accessories as they get more and more down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I've noticed that actually. So once you get someone self-sovereign with their keys, they want things very quickly. They want CoinJoin, they want Lightning, they want, that it just goes very, very quickly after that. And so they start looking at other avenues. But I think the basic newcomer can just, you look to a setup that solves a particular purpose, like for example, cold storage or custody, and then they can choose which one they want to up their game from there. But I think the main driver here is to just get them off the exchange. Like let's get them into a nice, secure setup, and make sure that they know what a Bitcoin transaction even looks like. Even you should start off with just taking $50 off the exchange and playing with it on your mobile phone. If you've never done a Bitcoin transaction, I'd encourage you to do one, and use a phone to do that. So at least you know what you need to protect. The wallet gives you the 12 words. You now have some sense of ownership and accountability for it. And as that price goes up, you start to now think, all right, well, now I have this $50 is now $500, which is then going to go into $5,000, which is then going to go into 50,000, and then it just keeps going. And you kind of just go, whew, okay, I better lift my game here, and then you're financially incentivized to start learning about Bitcoin a little bit more.
I guess like the newbies when they first show up at the meetup or however they get into Bitcoin, it's always like a similar seduction where they, maybe they'll buy like $100. Like that's like a common thing at a bar. You'd be like, all right, I'll give you $100. Just give me some Bitcoin on like a phone wallet, right? Then it's like a bar napkin. They wrote the 12 words on a bar napkin, and I'm like, no, don't show anybody the words. Like it's like the typical newbie level. But they very quickly, like within a matter of days or weeks, they get a Trezor or some hardware wallet, and they start loading up a lot of money on some exchange, and they're all in by that point.
Well, I mean, that's always my favorite intro to someone who's like a real life friend or acquaintance or someone I just fucking met, that I'm shilling Bitcoin to, like, usually drunk in a bar, is to send them some, right? You send them a small amount to a phone wallet that you tell them to install. Right now I really like Blue Wallet and Samurai Wallet if you're on Android. But Blue Wallet is multi-platform, and you send it to them. And then once, you send them a little bit, then you have them send it back to you. You have them fuck around with it. Right. And there's something to be said about that, because when they come into this flow on like a KYC service, it really butchers what Bitcoin's about. Like it hits you with like all these identification shit, and it's just so not Bitcoin, that it fucks with their head. I feel like it fucks with their intro to Bitcoin. It fucks with like their conceptualization of Bitcoin. And I think one of the things us Bitcoiners fail to realize a lot of times is the status quo for digital money is that self-custody doesn't exist. It's not even a thing. So like they can't even contemplate that they like you put these 12 words into like a different device, and like they show up and you have access to them, and you don't have to like prove your identity or do any of this stuff. Like it's just not even a possibility. It's not even a consideration. So they need to be people need to basically be explicitly told and shown that they can even fucking do it in the first place, right?
Yep. I think the magic of a Bitcoin transaction shows a lot about the permissionless nature of Bitcoin. That it didn't go through a bank, it didn't go through anyone else, and you could be anywhere in the world and it can happen. And I think that is the beauty of Bitcoin, and people should start, transacting the way that it was intended, which is trustless or trust minimized, and using their own Bitcoin nodes, and just doing Bitcoin transactions the way that they were meant to be. I think that is definitely something to be said, and an experience that you should have.
Yeah, for sure. It's so hard to it depends on like what level they're coming in from, right? Like they could be like a salaryman, like a salaried employee working their whole life, 20, 30 years for some fiat money. And, you try explaining Bitcoin to them, and they'll like cognitive dissonance. Right? They don't want to hear it. They'll defend like fiat money to you. Like, this is why we need like whatever crazy, fiat brainwashing they've done their entire life. And that's why I stopped giving away like Bitcoin. Like I used to give away like $5 of Bitcoin to people all the time back in, the early days. And they all lost it. Like 90% of the people lost
100%, yeah.
Dude, and not only that, but it was like a negative thing. They like took it as like a spam email. They're like, oh, what is this? Like they don't like, they would kind of set up the wallet just to like be polite. But I realized that it was too early, right? Now I'm sure you could give people free Bitcoin all day long and they'd love it, right? But like back then, it was really like worthless money. And one guy, he showed me the wallet that I made for him back in 2013. The $5 was now like exactly like you said, Ketan, like $500 or $5,000. It was like literally like $20 turned into some, sizable amount of money. And I think like, damn, all those other people just totally lost out.
But that's the worst, is the random text you get like 4 years later. It's like, dude, like, remember when we set up that Bitcoin wallet or whatever? Like, can you get that for me? It's like, did you save anything that I told you to save? Did you save any of those things? And it's almost always lost.
Dude, I'll never forget that. Like, even like a couple of years ago, I remember, setting up someone with a wallet, and they wrote the words on a bar napkin. And like at the end of the night, they threw away the napkin. And I was so pissed, right? Because I was like they literally just threw away the Bitcoin that I gave them. Like zero respect for it, right? Like maximum disrespect.
But it's not, it's most of the time I've noticed it's not intentional. I mean, it's not even, there's
sure,
very
but
few things in our lives that maybe not in our lives, but there's very few things in most people's lives where if their phone gets destroyed by a bus or falls in a toilet or something, like they can't recover something that was on that device, right? Like there's very few things. Like one of the things that comes to mind for me, at least, is like if you don't back up your 2-factor codes well, your like OTP codes or something, and like the average user isn't doing that anyway.
Well, that's the real maybe the moral of the lesson of self custody or self sovereignty. Like people will always trade pretty much any security, privacy, or freedom that they have for convenience, right? Like before, Facebook or any of these centralized services, you could make your own website. You could put photos on your own website, but nobody did. And then as soon as Facebook came along, they're like, oh, click, click, click. I can just upload all my personal private photos to Facebook. And it's so easy, right? And I'm going to upload all my contacts and add all my friends. And, and so when it comes to money, maybe you don't want to make that same mistake, right?
But that's
I think there's a lesson there. There's definitely a lesson in self-hosting. I know that like when you, and I think views change as well over time. So when you do have something to protect, a lot of my views changed. It was, okay, privacy, well, I have nothing to hide, so go for it. But wait, hold on. Now I have something to protect. I don't want, like when I go through an airport, someone searching my phone. What the hell? No way. So these mindset changes. You start talking about self-defense. You start talking about weapons. You start, these sorts of conversations start to get triggered once you've actually gone down the self-sovereignty path. What if someone does this? What if someone does that? The mind just keeps going. Like it's just this, it continuously just ticks away as to, an adversarial mindset. And I don't think many people are used to that concept. And so when you start to think about these adversarial mindsets and things that could go wrong, you start to patch them up pretty quickly. Like as you said, a paper's not good enough, a napkin's not good enough, so you put it on a crypto steel or some sort of steel device. These are all sorts of things that just go with having something to protect now. And especially as that price goes up, now you've really got something to protect.
Well, it's like a generational thing, right? It depends on when you grew up and what the internet was like when you were. So, like, I guess I'm kind of an older guy now, but like when I grew up, there was no like I grew up on IRC, right? Like if you were not in the channel when someone said a message, you didn't get it. Like it was that simple, right? And now you have like literally every instant messaging service, whether having full end-to-end security and privacy or not, they all freaking save the messages to a database because of course they do, right? So now everyone's used to this, like the cloud will just kind of save you. Like you said, you could drop your phone in a toilet. Well, I'm using the iCloud, so all my data is in the cloud. I'm like the only person who, I complained to Matt the other day. I said, when I download the MP3s from TFTC podcast, like you don't have the cover art or the metadata. And you know why? Because I'm putting them on my 20-year-old iPod Nano, like because I self-host my podcasts.
Have you listened to the new Citadel Dispatch episodes yet?
I listened to the one with NVK.
Did you see?
I didn't.
Did you see I put all the information there for you.
Really? No, I haven't. It's not on my.
Because Marty manages.
Yet. I haven't seen it.
Marty manages the audio files for for the
I see.
the regular episodes, and then for Citadel Dispatch, I'm in charge of that. So I made sure from we've only done 2 episodes, but they both have the information there, and it's only for you. I don't know
Thank you.
anyone else is using.
Well, I mean, I'm just gonna make like my own podcast, like website, just on my own, just for myself, not to like share with other people, because the whole point, like podcasts are just MP3s, and like in my day, if you wanted to listen to music, you had to go on like Napster or whatever the peer-to-peer thing and download the MP3s. Nobody freaking downloads MP3s anymore. They just listen to it on streaming services, and so what happens if your like YouTube account gets deleted or something? Now all of your data is just gone. I would be like the only guy who took the time to like download it all and archive it all just to like have it for my own. Like what if my my internet goes down? Oh, no worries. I have like all my photos and all my content like right here. So it's like a self-sovereignty thing. It's just I don't want to trust other people, but it's more that when I grew up, there was no other solution. Like that was the only way to do it. Like if you had there was no Spotify like 20 years ago, right? And so now, if like kids these days, they grow up and they no, like really, it's like a mindset thing. If you grow up where everything's just in the cloud, that's like the natural order of the universe. Is that it's like the sunshine and the air that you breathe and the gravity that holds you. Like you don't think about those things, and just the data's in the cloud. That's how you think about it. And so that's like why I'm like one of very few people who like runs their own ISP just for themselves or something crazy. It's just like I grew up in Hawaii. Like there was no way to like get internet. Like I had to like work at an ISP and figure out how to do it just because I wanted to have fast internet for myself. And so if you grow up doing it a certain way, you'll always and this is why fiat people can't let go of their fiat mindset, right? It's because they've been working for that fiat paycheck and paying their fiat taxes the whole lifetime. They're not going to accept Bitcoin as their Lord and Savior. But kids these days, if you're like less than 12 years old, you've never known a world without Bitcoin. So it's as natural to you as the sunshine or the air and the water. So it's very natural for kids these days. Like, oh yeah, Bitcoin is just another app on my phone. Like, of course I'm going to use Bitcoin. Like, I'm not going to go into like a physical bank branch and have to like get all these weird documents and KYC. Like, fuck that. Why would I do that? Like, the user experience is so shitty. Like, Bitcoin's a million times better in every possible way. It's like Michael Saylor's always talking about how it dematerializes all these industries. It's true, right? Like, who's going to want to use a bank 10 or 20 years from now?
But I think there's a lesson here, right? Because using Bitcoin properly is the more difficult option. It's the more difficult option. It gets easier every day, but it's the more difficult option. I think that's a feature, not a bug. That the reason it's more difficult is because you actually own your own money, right? You're actually self-hosting. You're actually controlling your own wealth, your own data. Now, we saw with podcasting, right? It was very raw in the beginning. It was MP3s through RSS. You download them, you listen to them on, whatever player. And that's been hidden from the user now, right? The average user, to make podcasting more accessible and make podcasting more useful, or not useful, but easier to use, it's been hidden. Most users think like Apple is just like this, like Apple Podcast is just providing it, via their service. They don't understand what's going on in the background. They're not controlling their own data. They're just streaming it from these third-party apps. So as much as I think we should improve UX on like the self-custody side and stuff, I think we got to be a little bit careful as an industry, hiding absolutely everything from the user, right? Like we need Bitcoin users in the future to be educated about what's going on behind the scenes. It can't just be all hidden behind trusted third parties. Otherwise, we'll probably have an issue on our hands, right?
I would agree with that as well. I don't think you can sort of hide everything by a facade and then just tell someone to do only these sets of buttons only. You kind of need to go deeper and actually self-host. And that's what I've been doing as well. Like I have been unlearning all of this and then learning to self-host. I am absolutely amazed with the power of what an internet connection can do. because now I'm hosting my own next cloud service. So I'm de-Googling myself. I've got my own contacts. I've got my own calendar. I'm hosting it all. And I know now how to do the back end of that. I've got my own password manager, my own instance of Bitwarden. And then here is Wiz, who's got his own damn ISP. It's like, I got to get to this guy's level now.
No, just trust me. It's a money pit. That just stick with the sats. That's like even the mempool sponsorship money. Like we bought all these cool servers, but it's always like a fiat. Like any kind of hosting business or ISP business, it's a fiat business, and it's very capital intensive. Or like if you do like a mining business, it's like $1 million to set up a mining facility. And if you would have taken that $1 million worth of Bitcoin that you had to sell, and all the operating expenses, mostly just electricity, and all the money you put into it, like you might be up in fiat from your mining business, but you're going to be down in Bitcoin. You literally should have just done nothing. Like that's like every mistake I made in the past almost 10 years now since I've been in Bitcoin was just having weekends and putting my Bitcoin into some infrastructure that's going to supposedly make me more Bitcoin. And sure enough, it didn't. So I just need to be stronger, right?
It's hard to outperform the best performing asset of the last 12 years.
Exactly.
What do you think about pushing for people to earn Bitcoin for their goods and services as a method of acquiring Bitcoin? Is that something that is viable for some parts of the population?
Well, absolutely. I mean, BTC Pay Server, like there's a million ways to, work and earn money or sell products. And yeah, why not? Like there's no KYC, right? If you're selling stuff or consult, whatever services you provide. So yeah, like everyone needs to like work and earn money anyway. Wouldn't you rather earn sats than fiat?
I mean, the perfect example is Wiz just mentioned mempool.space's new community sponsorship feature, where community members who enjoy using mempool.space were able to donate to support it. And he launched it probably at the perfect fucking time. Like, I think we're up like 3x since you launched that, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I mean, like, yeah, I think we had like 53 sponsors, and it's like maybe we got like, and everyone did like at least 1 million sats. So yeah, it's like probably got like 6 million sats or something, which is pretty amazing for just like donations, right? Because I guess that's just like $16,000. Yeah, like it was like a
at the time it was like 5K or 6K.
True.
Like a couple months
when you sponsored the site, yes, Matt. Thank you for your sats.
When I sponsored, it was 1 million sats for like $100, right? And now it's $300.
That's true. But that's where if you consider fiat value, right? Or if you're only thinking if your like mental unit of account is sats, then it's
one
always
BTC equals one BTC. Right?
But then costs are going down, right? You should price everything in sats. I mean, that's like I think the new thing that people should really like come away with when they come into the space is that they should literally price every single fucking thing in their life in sats, and then that's how you conceptualize true FOMO.
Yeah.
Don't be like
me. Don't be like me. Don't be up in fiat. You want to be up in sats. That's the biggest mistake. Dude, like so many times, like I can tell you so many stories. Just like literally do not that. And I think it was American Hodl who tweeted something like, he's like, all you need to do to be rich in life is like buy Bitcoin, withdraw it from the exchange, and then do nothing. And number 3, do nothing is by far the hardest fucking thing. You'll like, what about this new investment? Or I could put like, no, just do nothing. Just sit on those sats and do nothing. That is the hardest thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would go take it a step further. Like you're trying to accumulate as much as possible, right? But yeah, I mean, if you look back The big thing that I've been talking about lately is like you just look back at like your take home pay priced in sats. And then that one like really hits you hard because like
That does hit you down. Yeah,
I'll never make as many sats as I made, last year. That's my take home pay, like my equivalent take home pay. I've hit my peak. Now it's just a sprint, a marathon to the finish.
Yeah. I have this one email in my inbox from many years ago where BitMEX made me some like amazing offer to like borrow all this Ethereum Classic or something that I had mined, and I turned them down because for whatever reason, like if I would have just taken that deal, it would have like locked up all my money in Bitcoin essentially in the most perfect deal ever, and I would have been set for life. And I just look at that email all the time. Like I should print it out and frame it on the wall. Like there's always these opportunities, right? Where like, I had 100 Bitcoin on my phone, or you could have, you
just
I'm
can't.
sure
You
guys
can't
got
live in the
stuff.
past. You can't live in the past. You got to just do your best, and just keep your head down, right, and keep moving forward. Like I always think that's the wrong way. I mean, like, and like we kind of moved away from self-sovereignty, but I enjoy this conversation, so I'm just going to continue it. Like a lot of people, like the famous one is Laszlo, right? So it's like, okay, he paid $10,000 for 10,000 sats for a couple pizzas or whatever. I think that's the wrong way to look at it, right? Like this guy was already in a place where he discovered Bitcoin and was accumulating sats. Me, who had no idea who Bitcoin was at the same exact time, was also wasting sats on pizzas. I just didn't even know what sats were, right? So like this idea that like, oh, like only Bitcoiners who spend things should regret spending their Bitcoin is like a fucking ridiculous concept. It's like anyone who's not net accumulating sats every year is short Bitcoin and is losing, regardless if you've discovered it yet or not.
Yes, that is a good take to make yourself feel better about spending. Yes.
Well, it goes back to like what you said earlier about having your internal mental unit of account is pricing everything in sats. If you go back and you do think, well, how many sats was I making as my take-home salary back in 2013? Like they were sats, you just didn't know it at the time, and you didn't convert it or sell it. Even though I might have actually had those sats in my Bitcoin wallet and then ended up selling them, it didn't really matter because the opportunity was always there, whether they were sats or not. I could have just, parked like $1,000 in 2009 into sats too. Like, but did you do it? Right. Like,
right. Okay. Well, let's just try and bring it back to self-sovereignty for a little bit before we end this conversation. New user listening to this stream, they're like, fuck, I'm short on sats because we just FOMO'd them on the last 5 minutes there. I have some, they're on, like a Cash App, I guess, or a Coinbase, or a River or a Kraken, one of these exchanges. They don't have any self-custody yet. They don't use their own node. They don't own a hardware wallet. They're relatively new Bitcoiner. What are they? What's their first step? What's the process here?
For me, I would say do your first Bitcoin transaction with a small amount using a mobile phone. I think that step there is probably one of the easiest ways and quick to start understanding what self-sovereignty is about and the words that you need to protect and what you need to protect. So $50 off an exchange like your Cash App, have it and play around with that $50 and get comfortable with receive and send and just play around with it. That's, I think, your first step if you're completely green. Then you want to move up as we've discussed, just move up that ladder into getting hardware wallets and metal and running your own node. And then, moving to Spectre Desktop and Bitcoin Core and all of that sort of stuff. But I think if you don't understand the beauty of doing a Bitcoin transaction, it will be lost on you when you go straight to these hardware wallets and straight to Spectre and all this sort of stuff. Do a Bitcoin transaction would be my recommendation. Just do it.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. Like with a very small amount, you don't have to worry that you're gonna like lose all your money if you screw it up. And so you can, for example, I usually suggest to people to buy like a hardware wallet like Trezor or something that plugs into like Electrum or Spectre now is the cool wallet to use. But like, you know, set up your hardware wallet, make your seed backup, send like $5 worth of Bitcoin to it, and then wipe your device and restore from the backup. Can you get that $5 back? You know, pretend like you actually destroyed your device by dropping it into the toilet or something, right? And then you'll feel much more comfortable after you wipe it a few times and you know, maybe you do lose the $5, maybe, you know, but then that's also like part of the learning lesson. I think everybody loses sats at one point or another. You know,
If you
either
haven't, you're
getting,
probably doing something wrong.
well, I mean, either getting doxxed from like, you know, or some kind of scam or some kind of screw up, like you intentionally, I mean, unintentionally just, you know, or you lose your seed phrase backup or whatever it was. You forget your passphrase, Matt. You know, like there's
Well,
so
I mean,
many.
I think that's an important element that people miss, right? I think you both covered it pretty well there, but the getting comfortable with it, right? I think if you look at the majority of times people have lost Bitcoin or had Bitcoin stolen for them, it's because of lack of comfort, right? So this going through this whole process of sending, receiving, destroying, restoring, backing up, doing everything multiple times, getting really comfortable with it, is probably the number one rule, right? The number one thing that people should be considering here.
Yes, get comfortable with Bitcoin and how it works and what the intricacies are. I think that is some really good advice. Just get comfortable over what you are doing.
Yeah, I think if you set a few sats to yourself first, and you know, you can experiment, you can play around without having to worry about it. That's the best advice.
This was a great conversation, guys. I want to thank both of you for joining me. I want to thank the viewers. I want to thank Bitcoin. I want to thank all the Bitcoiners out there, and I want to thank Bitcoin Magazine for hosting this conversation. I'm your host, Matt Odell. Stay humble, stack sats.